And this is one of the biggest lies they ever told us, that we all from Africa, scared of black. We all are not from Africa. We were always here on this land. We didn't come from no Africa.
You're Indian?
Yeah.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah,
You gotta be
What
kidding
kind
me.
of Indian are you?
Like Tonto Indian?
Shitty cock Indian.
Yeah, I had no idea about the history. I had no idea how inclusive this group is and what it means to be part of Standing Rock and be part of the United Sioux Nations.
Well, I have one that's my tribal tattoo. I'm from, the Pamunkey tribe.
Stand ask my grandma, like, yo, grandma, what's your background? She like, Redfoot and Blacktail Indian. What? Yeah, my mother and my father did. We 100% Indians.
Host a show. I've been in the business so long, and I'm the only Indian in the business today.
With a spot cam, sit back and watch. Don't watch your watch hand. Give me some time, man. I am no bomb, man. I am gonna swim till I come out on dry land. Out on the frying pan. No, we did not land on Plymouth Rock and landed on our land. Now we just buying land. No, we did not land on Plymouth Rock and landed on our land. Now we just buying land.
They keep trying to run the Out of Africa story so they would not ever have to pay us reparations with our land. They've took all the land. Even the black farmers are having problems, being reduced almost to nothing. These people have stole everything, our total heritage, the Blackfoot, the Seminole, the Creek, the Cherokee, and so many other tribes, the whole Anasazi nation of blacks here running this country and building most of these old buildings you see still standing. These Europeans are nothing but parasites. Stand up and wake up.
Being played. The Narragansett families who wish to remain traditionally as their ancestors had been, made sure there was the teaching. Go out there and learn all that you can from these people. But never forget who you are. Never forget you have your own language, your own religion, and your own way of acceptance.
In Rhode Island, some citizens who did not own property had to wait until 1928 before they were granted voting rights. But three groups were still officially barred by state law from casting a ballot: paupers, the mentally incompetent, and Indians. The only way the Narragansetts could participate in elections was by identifying themselves as African Americans. Charles Ernest Hazard confronted officials who enforced this practice. His brother, Joseph, one of the oldest members of the Narragansett Nation, recalls the moment.
Indians couldn't vote, so he went up to the State House, and he says, it's on the charter that the Indians can't vote. And he says, you're voting, ain't you? And he says, no. He says, I consider myself a Narragansett Indian. If I vote, I'm voting under Negroes could vote, but not an Indian. And he said, I consider myself a Narragansett, not a black, so I'd like to have that changed.
What's up, family? Peace to the gods and goddesses. We back with another one, part 2. Our story versus his story. Who are the American Aborigines? So we're going to get into the indigenous people, your so-called Native Americans, Indians, and so what. Now pay attention. When you think about it, in school they teach us that we are all Africans. But if you are well-rounded individual, you should be able to tell the difference between an African, a Jamaican, an indigenous North American, a Solomon Islander. You should be able to tell the difference between these particular races, so to speak. But family, we are not Africans. The Africans don't look at us as Africans. This our shit over here, what they call present day America. This our shit. And that's they shit. Africa is they shit. This is our shit right here. But they script us from the bloodline. our original family lineage. Like, people, we got to go do ancestry checks and see where our bloodline go back to. You know what I'm saying? This shit is serious. This shit is detrimental to life in our existence right now. But we got to understand that they divided us up way back then. You feel me? Back then, we were divided up and split up into sections and tribes. The ancestors of living Native Americans today arrived in North America about 15,000 years ago. As a result, a wide diversity of communities, societies, and cultures finally developed. So basically, all these indigenous communities were spreading out over the continent of North America. So before Columbus even touched down back in 1492, it was 70 million or more indigenous people out. 70 million people. And within that, it was about 560 tribes that spread across the land that we call U.S. today. The America's European conquest began in 1492, which ended in a big drop of the Native Americans' population through epidemics, hostilities, ethnic cleansing, slavery, and the Indian Removal Act of 1830. This estimated in 60 million Native Americans being killed by a combination of events. And before the United States was so-called founded, the established Native American tribes that was already there, they were viewed as like semi-independent nations because they lived in communities separate from the white immigrants, the white motherfuckers that came over here, you feel me? So they weren't really just fucking with them. But that because they had to sooner or later come together. But we're going to get into all that. We ain't going to skip now because we're gonna get into some more events that took place. Yeah, they did come over here and colonize us. But we were also always fighting with each other too because we were, like I said, we was already divided. So we battling for territory, resources, power, and all kind of other shit before the white man got over there. We was already into it. So from 1492 up to now, they want us to believe that we were enslaved, which we were, but it wasn't how they taught us. So us as a nation back then, we wasn't ready for how the white man way of doing things was. We wasn't ready for that. We was bucking on them then. Same way you see us buck on them today. We used to buck on them then. But as you know, we also were traded. It was some traders. It was traders. Got people that traded us out, sold us out. You know, because family, look, you got to remember, the Haitians, Dominicans, and all the people from America were beefing amongst each other then and now. And we didn't fully respect the white man laws. But that because we live free, we live by universal law. We live by the universal laws.
Address, if you would, the role that the U.S. government, see, this wasn't willy-nilly cowboys, running wild. This was a U.S. government and its policies that ultimately bastardized, took away from, stole from the Native Americans, made treaties that ultimately were broken. If you want to say willy-nilly, that's where willy-nilly came in. So if you would address that for a moment.
Well, yes, and see, it started at one of the first treaties was the New York Treaty about 1516 that came in. That was one of the first treaties. But in every one of those treaties that they set up with the Indians, they put an inclusion in there saying this, that if you were to cooperate with us and be able to help us maintain the slavery system we set up in this country, and we will reward you and compensate you. We'll give you clothing, we'll give you food, we'll give you weapons, and we'll even call you civilized if you will help us maintain slavery. Every treaty contained a clause to help Indians to shut down black folk. Slavery could never have existed in this country and been maintained without the full participation of the American tribes. That's why they started calling them civilized, Rock, because they began to say, you quit hunting in the woods and running wild and get yourself some land and get yourself some slaves. So Indians became slave hunters, slave traders, and in the final analysis, all civilized tribes, the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Cherokee, and Seminole Indians, they all fought with the South to maintain slavery. And so therefore, and they got benefits from it. And that led to, going back to the earlier question you asked me about reparations. And even after the Civil War ended, the Choctaw and Chickasaw were still holding about 12 or 15,000 slaves even after the Civil War ended. The United States government sent in troops saying, you got to get rid of this slavery and set black folk free. And they set up what's called the 1866 Indian Treaties with these 5 civilized tribes, which says that black people in this country, you must not only turn them loose, they must get benefits. They must get forms of reparations, going back to your earlier question. You must first of all, set them free. 2, you must give them an option, and this is for all black freedmen and all blacks who lived in the Indian Territory and all black Indians. You must set them free, allow them to have membership in the tribe. You must give them, let them have access to all the resources on the reservation. You must let them also be tax exempt. You must let them have free education. You must also let them be able to give them $150 in cash. You must give them 160 acres of land. And in present day times, those black Indians under the 1866 treaties should be getting, they could also hold gambling casinos. Now, this country has never carried out the full mandates, but yet we are still honoring it for Indians. Right now, all the benefits that Indians are getting in this country are getting it from the 1866 Indian Treaty, because they took up arms against the United States in the Civil War. They wiped out all previous treaties. Now, every year in the White House, we get about 567 white Indian chiefs, which in history they call $5 Indians, because 90% of the people call themselves Indians nowadays are not really Indians. Those are whites passing as Indians, because they paid $5 to the Dawes Commission to get their name on the Dawes roll so they can get all these advantages. But every year they get invited to the White House. And every year they got an approximate $3.5 billion every year, even that Obama's been in office. They got money into the Federal Indian Bureau. Now, see, if you were to talk about reparations, black folks have been getting all this money all these years too. But they got shut out because the Indians in 1938, they sent a letter to the Department of Bureau of Indian Affairs saying, how do we shut black folk down to make sure they never get any reparations? And that letter floated around in the federal government from about 1938 to about 1941. Then it went to the Secretary for the Department of Interior. And the Department of Interior looked and says, said, how do I come up with a scheme to shut down blacks so they get no reparations in this country? He said, what you do, you Indians come up with a new concept called a quantum blood law, which says that black folk are not entitled to any of the benefits of the 1866 treaties in terms of reparations unless they can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that they got 1/4 Indian blood in them. And we make Indian blood sacred like Jesus Christ's blood. And therefore, they've been shutting blacks out all these years. That's why they didn't get any reparations, to go back to your earlier point. And the last point on reparations, you asked me earlier about a blueprint. This country's always given reparations to all groups except black folk, even though black folk were the ones who built the country. They built the bridges, they picked the cotton, they built the highways, they built the government buildings. They were the backbone of this nation. But now, so in the Marshall Plan, we gave billions of dollars to Germans after World War II. We got under what's called a Point 4 program. We gave reparations to Japanese. We gave reparations to American Indians. We gave reparations to everybody but black folk. Yet black folk are locked into the bottom of a vertical order and a descending order of wealth, owning, and poverty, and control of resources, and nobody wants to address the issue.
So family, that was the God, Clyde Anderson, our brother. You really have to pay attention to the things that he said. A lot of y'all don't like the truth. A lot of y'all may know the truth. But yes, there were slaves. There were traders. There were people going against the grain. Like you said, it's black people that even owned slaves back then. Black people that owned slaves. Slavery is not what they... It's his story, you feel me? They taking our story and turning it into his story. Ethnic cleansing, stripping us from the culture. So these Europeans, or your so-called Spanish conquistadors, they came over here fighting with us. They was winning some, and they was getting their ass kicked. And majority of the time, they was getting their ass kicked. This when they came in with the peace treaties. The treaties, that's what they call them, the treaties. But they peace treaties. It's like let's make a deuce. Let's come together. But family, we're gonna go over some of the events that took place with the Florida and Louisiana Indians, natives, indigenous people. I just had to give y'all like a little background on what happened so you'll see that eventually the Europeans received help from the Native Americans. The art of war is deception. So basically they had to trick them into converting over and to get with the program like, shit, get out the woods, go get y'all some land and get y'all some slaves and get with the program. You see what's going on. You see how we kicking shit over here. This is what the Europeans are telling the Native Americans. That's why they come in with these treaties. They trying to make peace so they can finish their mission that they got. The Europeans, the Spanish conquistadors, they came with their own mission. So we fast forwarding to when Columbus, he's sending letters back to his gang. He's sending letters back to his squad over there in Europe saying, telling them what he's seen over there. So they getting their stuff together and they trying to come over. They trying to come to America now. And, they trying to get on the same shit that Columbus on. I'm trying to get some of that. I need some of that land. I need some of them slaves. I'm trying to get my bloodline to spread it through America too. I'm trying to get the family lineage strong as possible. That's basically what they own. That's why they coming to America, stripping all the natives from their heritage. But we're gonna get into DeSoto and the Florida and the Louisiana indigenous stories. So you see the black Indians, they were met by the Spaniards in Louisiana in 1543, prior to Hernando de Soto, who landed on the coast of Florida. That's where he landed. He came to Florida. See, he was initially coming to Louisiana to colonize the entire Gulf Coast, but he landed in Florida first. There is where he automatically started warring with the Florida Indians. Like, as soon as they met each other, they got to scrapping. Like, on sight. Like, what you doing here? You see, DeSoto, he described the Indians that he was battling with to be large, strong, and black. Dark pigment skin. So these Florida Indians, they were kicking ass. They kicking DeSoto them ass down that bit. And these were your so-called indigenous black people. You see, due to the Florida climate, the complexion of their skin was dark. And that was due to the sun's location too. You see, Louisiana and southern Mississippi is where a lot of your dark-skinned Indians were located. They were captured into slavery, though, forced into assimilation and into colonies, which led to them, into having their identities reclassified and changed. Went from indigenous to Negro, black, and colored, and to now African American. So in Louisiana and southern Mississippi, there were large Indian nations like the Choctaw and the Tunica Indian, and etc. Under the nation, there were dozens of tribes under them, and throughout southern Louisiana and Mississippi. Africa doesn't give you dark skin. It's all about the position of the sun and the equator. Florida and California is where you will find your darkest melanated people, because they are getting more sun the most. So white people couldn't have been the first, because the climate isn't producing that kind of, it ain't producing that type of environment for them. They originated from the Caucasus Mountain. That's where you get the Nephilim from. But that's a whole nother story. It's important to understand that the non-indigenous people are a product of the Neanderthal people crossbreeding and mixing with each other. And the word Indian means dark pigment. The darkest people in the world are from India. Present-day India was originally called Hindustan, Hindustan. Columbus came to America and called us Indians. You see, we are the dark-skinned people the Spanish conquistadors seen when they arrived on the land. Family, I'm going to come back with a part 3 of the version of this Native American version. Because everything ties in. We got to know our history. We got to know the history. And we got to know the real history. And you got to go back. To understand the future, you got to go backwards.